Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to auscastnetwork.com for details.
In a world where everyone says hello,
they dare to say,
g'day.
Yeah, g'day.
Yeah, g'day!
Yeah, g'day. Yes. Good day. Yeah.
G'day.
G'day. Yeah. G'day. Yeah.
Day.
Yeah. Good day.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, good day.
G'day. Hey. Yeah. G'day. Yeah. G'day, Tim.
Yeah, g'day, Leon.
Yeah. G'day, everyone.
Yeah, g'day, everyone.
Oh, it's a lovely summer's day here in Melbourne.
It's
Is
not
it summer?
summer. No, mate, it's autumn.
Why is the sun out?
Oh, yeah.
If the sun's out, it's summer.
That's science, yeah.
I
Must be true.
am the science man. Well, it's a lovely something day here in Melbourne. It's all right.
Yeah, it's alright, isn't it?
Now,
It's cold
Tim,
last night.
when you're in Melbourne,
Yep.
there's a couple of things that you can do.
Yes.
You can go see a Broadway show on Broadway in Melbourne.
We have a lot of Broadway shows here.
You can go out clubbing.
Yep, Seals.
Whoa.
Too much? Yeah, probably.
But I prefer to go to Old Melbourne Jail and check out the death masks and the site of Ned Kelly's hanging.
Yeah, no, we thought my seal clubbing joke was dark.
No.
That yours isn't even a joke. It's a
Bah.
legitimate segue of sorts.
It is a segue of sorts. It's something I like to do. So, as people would know from pictures of both Tim and I, we are bearded gentlemen. And a beard in Australia makes you one of two things. You're either a barista at a coffee shop or you're a bushranger.
It's true.
To this day. So Tim and I are in hiding at the moment. We're in the bush, recording this from the lovely bush. But I've had an interest in bushrangers for a very long time. Hence the reason, that we have our lovely bushranger segment every 5th episode. And as you'll notice, this is a 5th episode.
It is, 7 times 5. 35?
35, I believe we're
Episode 35.
up to. Which is just astounding we've made it this far.
You'd think the podcast would have got its life together at this point. 35, coming up on 40. Has it had kids yet? Is it married?
It's having a bit of a quarter midlife crisis situation going on.
Yeah, interesting.
But my interest in bushrangers comes from my dad's interest in bushrangers. Because growing up, I can remember on his bookshelf there was a book about Ned Kelly. It was a black book with white writing on the side. And I just remember always looking at that being like, one day I'll read that book. I don't think I've read that book yet.
Never read it.
No, but I always thought about that. And Dad always had all these facts about Ned Kelly and the Kelly gang. It was always very interesting. And I just got into it too. Do you have a particular interest in bushrangers?
Until we started doing this, not really. I do remember studying bushrangers at school. We did like a whole unit, and we actually had this weird computer game that I can now suddenly recall.
Okay.
Which involved learning about bushrangers as well. So that's something I'm going to have to delve deeper into my own memory at some point. Not now.
I want to play this game.
Yeah, it was like one of those old school computers with like the blocky graphics.
Yeah.
Like the very first ones. So that was good. Learned a lot about bushrangers. But yeah, I've come to get into them.
Well, Ned Kelly and the Kelly gang are synonymous with bushranging.
Yeah.
So no matter what part of the
bushrangers. They're the big fellas.
Tall as well. I believe Ned was quite tall.
Yeah.
But no matter where you are in the world, you know about the Kelly gang. I'm pretty sure. I think everyone knows about the Kelly gang.
I read a fact before we even get into it that Ned and the Kelly gang there are more books written about Ned and the Kelly gang than there are on any other topic in Australian history.
I'll just cross out that fact that I was about to share with Tim.
Son.
Well, on top of that fact, Tim, the first feature-length film in the entire world that was ever made was the story of the Kelly gang in looking down at my pad here, it's down 1906.
I did know that. I didn't know the date, but I did know that it was the first feature-length film. Yeah.
Have you seen it? Any bits
I've
of it?
seen bits of it. In Year 6, we went to Canberra to the
National
Film
and Sound
and Archive.
Yeah.
And I remember them showing us a little bit of it. Not very much, but a little bit of it. Yeah.
They said that was all that remained.
Yeah.
And it was the clip that you would have seen would have been the same clip that I saw, and it was the screen was basically red for a lot of it because that was to show that there was the fire going on.
Yeah.
And it was like the Glenrowan scene when they set fire to the building and stuff like that. Yeah, which is again amazing seeing that film was crazy, but also
wild.
the Kelly gang was what that film was about.
And 1906, that's like not even that long after
No.
it all went down.
So it ended in 1880, as we'll find out soon.
Yeah.
It took about 26 years and made a film.
Incredible.
26 years? Yeah. So, as you can tell, we're going to start talking about the Kelly Gang. Now, we've been saving this. We've been saving this for the build-up to episode 50, where we'll talk about the big dog, the big bushranger, the man himself, Edward Ned Kelly.
Yes.
But to get there, we're going to talk about the rest of the Kelly Gang first.
One by one.
One by one. And we're doing it in order of age. So the youngest at the time of death was
The
Dan.
Macnay. The Macnay, if you will.
The
If
what?
you're into K-pop. Don't worry about it. Move on.
Why does everything have to be about K-pop? We're talking about the Kelly Gang today. Can we have one day not about
Look.
K-pop, unless it's Kelly Pop?
Yeah, Kelly Pop. That's what it is. It's Kelly Pop.
So before Tim rudely interrupts with his dumb Korean pop stuff,
Yeah, right.
Dan was 19 when he died, so he's the youngest of the Kelly Gang.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to, because it's our first episode about the Kelly Gang, we're going to talk a lot about this, like, I guess the Kelly Gang story in general, and not so, like, we're not going to talk only about Dan, but we're going to try and focus on Dan. But you're going to get a bit of the facts. We're not going to talk about everything because, as some of you know, I have a Peter Fitzsimmons book called Ned Kelly, which is like 800 or 1,000 pages long. It's this huge book that I've read. And you could talk that long about the Kelly Gang if you really wanted to.
There's a lot to say.
We're doing the Spark Notes Wikipedia version.
Yeah.
Where I've taken notes on a notepad and pen because I'm old school.
That's the other difference.
Yeah, I'm giving the facts.
You're doing it, not me.
I'm getting in the cold hard facts, and
I'm
am
doing jack all. I'm just going to make K-pop references.
Yeah,
like,
you probably
for
are.
45
and
minutes.
I'm going to be nervous. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. So Daniel Kelly was born on the 1st of June, 1861. Now, Daniel was born to Father John Kelly, who was known as Red, and Ellen Quinn. So they were married in 1850.
Right.
Both Irish. And I think they married in Australia when they were both over here.
Oh, they were already here.
I
That's
think so.
different. Most of our bushrangers so far have come there for some reason.
Yeah, so I think all the Kellys, I'm not sure because I didn't really say this when I was reading about Dan, but I feel like most of the Kellys were born in Australia, maybe.
Interesting.
But I could be wrong because I don't know geography, as we all know. And so when I look at place names, I'm like, it's probably in Australia.
First gen immigrant.
Yeah, and so now the thing about Red and Ellen is that they had 7 children
Yeah.
in a 10-year time frame.
Wow.
Annie,
Poor Ellen.
Ned,
Mm-hmm.
Maggie, Jim, Dan, Kate, and Grace.
Beautiful names.
That's all the kids. And I think Annie was like 1853 or something, so 3 years after they got married. I think Grace was 1863.
I think that's like every white person name you could possibly... They've ticked every box.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's always fun as well because I always forget that Ned's real name was Edward.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I've really remembered his dad's name being John. I always know him as Red Kelly.
Yeah.
So Red Kelly was a bit of a bad guy himself. Well, a bad guy in the eyes of others. He stole a calf in 1864 and was sent to jail for 6 months. So like they were a family, as you'll know from the story if you read more in the story. They're a family that's known by the police,
Right.
for the whole time, and they're a family that's in my eyes, because I take the view of the Kelly Gang not being horrible people, were kind of oppressed by the police at the time, which is a very typical thing that we see in Australia at this time, the Irish versus the police, and even though the Irish policemen were there as well. It's a very interesting battle
Yeah.
during these selection times, Tim.
Right. Yes.
But Dan himself was first in trouble with the police at the age of 5.
He's a bad kid.
So,
bad
yeah,
egg.
bad
this
egg.
one.
So they arrested him because they thought he stole a horse.
A 5-year-old.
If a 5-year-old steals a horse, the kid deserves to keep the
Yeah,
horse.
he can keep the fucking
Like,
horse as far as
if
I'm concerned.
I can't even steal a horse, and I'm 25.
That's some skill. That is some real skill.
So they thought he stole his horse, and I don't think he did, and so he wasn't charged or anything. But a 5-year-old getting apprehended by the police. Scary times.
Crazy.
Now, Red himself died in 1866. So obviously there's a couple of years that we've jumped there, but that's just an important thing to note. And so the family moved to Greta, which is basically the homestead kind of for the rest of the story.
Alright.
So Greta's in Victoria, I assume. I think it's closest to Glenrowan, maybe. I don't know.
Couldn't tell you.
Let's just say it and everyone will believe us.
Yes.
So Dan was in trouble again at the age of 10 with the police.
Right. Did he
Now,
steal 2 horses? By this point, yeah.
So this time he and his brother Jim were riding a horse that wasn't theirs.
Okay.
And so the police stopped them and were like, you can't ride this horse. And Dan was like, we have permission. And they didn't believe him. So 10-year-old Dan, I think Jim as well, who was, I think, older than Dan, 2 nights in jail.
That's... Yeah, right.
10-year-old kid, 2 nights in jail. The thing is that after this, it came out that he did have permission to ride this horse.
Yeah, right.
So this policeman arrested this poor child for no good reason. So again, they're known to the police. It seems like maybe the police are picking on them more. And in 1875, Dan and his cousins went to New South Wales, which it seems like a lot of people did at that time to look for seasonal farm work. So it was supposedly in the Riverina area doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
But they were known as the Greta Mob.
Okay.
So there was like Dan and all his mates, and they were known as the Greta Mob. And supposedly they were quite well known. They used to go around to places a lot in different areas. And one of the areas they went to was... I struggle with that place name for 1 second. Benalla?
Benalla.
Benalla?
I think it's Benalla.
I think it's Benalla. Well, I don't know. I was so confident before we started, and then as soon as I actually had to pronounce it, I was like, fuck, how do you say that word?
Benalla.
Benalla. He was arrested there for stealing a saddle, but he wasn't charged because they couldn't prove it. So
Right,
supposedly
okay.
he stole a saddle, couldn't prove it. And then in October 1877, they went to a shop, and the shop was closed.
Okay.
And so the story goes the shop was closed and the owner wouldn't open up. And so Dan broke the door down. And
Right.
then they stole property, but I don't even think just from the shop, of like 113 pounds worth of property.
Right.
But then when it went to trial and that, they didn't have enough proof. And so they just charged Dan, gave him a month in prison and charged him £10 for the door.
Okay.
Now, I sometimes go to shops that are closed, and boy, howdy do I feel like kicking the door down.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when Chemist Warehouse closes too early and I can't get my medication.
Your cheap meds.
My cheap meds. So that's the thing is here is that we're very early in the story of Dan Kelly, and we've already had many run-ins with the police,
Yeah.
and there's just going to be more.
Is that he's a bad egg, or is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? The police keep bothering them, so they start to become what they're told they are.
I think it's a bit of what they told of what they are, only because he was 5 years old and he got in trouble for supposedly stealing a horse.
And he's not the only one getting in trouble. His entire family keeps getting in trouble. We're just focusing on Dan, but everyone's getting in trouble constantly from these police fuckers.
Yeah, and it starts to get nasty. Like, it starts to get bad. So 15th of April 1878 is a very... There's kind of two momentous events. Aside from Glenrowan, there's two momentous events, and one of them is 15th of April 1878. It's called the Fitzpatrick Incident, is what they call it.
Right.
So Constable Fitzpatrick was this policeman, and he went to arrest Dan at the Kelly household for stealing horses, as everyone stole horses back then, supposedly.
Yeah.
But in this trying to arrest him, a fight broke out, and Fitzpatrick claims that he was assaulted by multiple people, including their two next-door neighbours. He claims to be shot in the hand by Ned Kelly just above the wrist.
Right.
And so this whole thing broke out. Now, there are multiple accounts of this story. So Fitzpatrick's is that version.
Okay.
And then Dan's got a version of the story, or someone else got a version of the story, where Fitzpatrick comes to the house. It turns out there's some reports that he was actually drunk as well.
The police was drunk.
Yeah, and
right.
there was also some rule that to go to the Kelly household, you were meant to take two people. Like, it was meant to be two policemen, but this one rocked up.
Yeah.
And so he was drunk and stuff and tried to arrest Dan. And then the story goes that Ned was actually like hundreds of miles away at this time.
Right.
Wasn't even at home.
Wasn't there at all.
And so Dan pretended that Ned was coming because everyone was afraid of Ned. Like, Ned was this big, burly man.
Yeah, right.
And he was with the bad family, so the police were afraid of him. So he was like, oh, Ned's coming. Oh, he's over there, and like pretended to look for Ned. And then supposedly Ellen, the mum, hits Fitzpatrick over the head with like a coal shovel. But then he arrests Dan anyway, and he lets him sit down and have dinner. It's this weird thing that happens. But the other story that's been going around, which I'm more familiar with, is that Fitzpatrick came and he sat around for an hour before anything happened. But he made a pass at Kate, I think, one of the sisters.
Right.
And so there was this whole thing about, Ned being pissed off that he was trying to crack onto his sister, this gross policeman, and blah, 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 blah. So lots of accounts of this story. Now, the story's bad, obviously.
Of course.
Dan fucked off, ran to the bush.
Yeah.
Ned met him in the bush and they ran off together, I guess, if Ned wasn't at home at the time.
Right.
This is where it gets really gross. Ellen Kelly, their mum,
Yep.
was sent to jail for 3 years. That's bad.
No, great. No.
What's worse is that Ellen had to go to jail with her newborn baby Alice, who was like 6 months old or something, because she had 3 kids with another guy called George King, who she met later on.
Right.
But so she had this newborn baby and went to jail
Okay.
with a baby.
So she's just got the baby.
She's
in
just
jail.
in jail with the baby. And supposedly, no matter if you were a Kelly sympathizer or not, everyone was like, hey, that's fucked.
Yeah.
We should
Also,
not.
Why is she even in jail to begin with?
Because supposedly it was attempted murder on Fitzpatrick.
Right.
So she's charged with attempted murder. And then the two neighbours, they got like 6 years or something in jail for attempted murder.
Right.
Because of all this story that went on. So poor Ellen, and now remember, this is 1878. So Ellen's in jail for the rest of the Kelly story.
Yeah.
Like, bonkers. So Dan and Ned, they went into hiding in... Well, it says the Wombat Ranges here, but then I read another part of the thing. It was like supposedly in the Wombat Ranges. I'm like, I don't know. But they had an area near Bullock Creek. They had like 20 acres because supposedly Dan had gone there earlier, cleared a bunch of land for horses and that, and had built some huts.
Yeah, right.
So they just hung out in this area and started gold mining because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And whilst they were there, they were visited by Steve Hart and Joe Byrne, who we will talk about later on because they became part of the Kelly gang.
Yep.
A guy called Aaron Sherritt, who also has an interesting role in this. And it just said, and the Lloyds. I don't remember who the Lloyds were, but they were there.
Every Lloyd came to... Lloyd first name or Lloyd last name?
Who knows? Multiple. I think it's multiple first name Lloyds.
Lloyd. Yeah.
Which, as we said, the white people names, when we talk about the police in the next incident, they all have the same name, almost. Yeah. So at this time, when the boys have just run away, £100 reward on each of their heads.
Wow.
Or for both of them or something.
Which is a lot of money at the moment.
It is a lot. I don't do any conversions until later in this story, but that's a significant number. Just for an attempted murder that possibly may or may not have happened in this whole thing. And
it seems likely that it didn't happen.
And so in October 1878, there were police search parties that were sent out. So they sent out 2 search parties, kind of going from 2 different directions to try and, I guess, cut them off either way.
Right.
But there was one search party, and this is the other big event in the Kelly history, probably the biggest, again, aside from Glenrowan, is Stringy Bark Creek, which... Tim's recognition of that is the recognition that everyone has when they hear about Stringy Bark Creek. Because at this time, this is when they become outlaws.
This is the moment where they adopt the persona that has already kind of been put onto them, and they adopt it in a big way.
Yeah, this is the time when everything goes to shit. Yeah. Essentially.
You tell a story, but I'm aware of what happens here, but yeah.
So there was a team of 4. There were like 4 policemen. There was Sergeant Michael Kennedy. Mm-hmm. There was Constable Thomas McIntyre. There was Constable Thomas Lonergan. And there was Constable Michael Scanlon.
The Toms
and the Michaels. Yeah. So we just had 2 Toms, 2 Michaels on the team. It's the way all search parties were.
The Lloyds have just left.
Yeah, the Lloyds have gone. So... They had a camp, and I think it was Dan and Ned were hanging out. But like at this time, I think like Steve and Joe were part of it all as well. Yeah. And they heard some gunshots, and so they went towards the gunshots, and they found this camp of police that were there to try and capture them, obviously. So they got the jump on them and captured the police, and they told them to surrender. So McIntyre surrenders. So that's McIntyre was one of the constables, but Lonergan, another one of the constables, tries to run away.
Okay.
So Ned shoots him.
Yep.
That's the moment when everything goes to shit.
Yeah.
Because Ned shoots a policeman. And I don't think there's much contention over that fact. I believe it just happened.
Yeah, it's not... It's pretty clear cut.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
He shot him as he ran away.
So that's where it all goes to shit. Now, after that, the other police come back because like there were only 2 at the site and the other 2 were away. Right. Which is bad because these other 2 come back and that's when it's all like, oh, everything's kind of like, what the fuck? You guys are here. We're trying to... So they're still trying to capture them. And so they come back. Now, McIntyre tells them to surrender. McIntyre's on the money here. He's like, please surrender. So Scanlon, he tries to reach for his rifle as he gets off the horse. Mm-hmm. So Ned shoots him.
Yeah.
2 for 2.
Ned's in a bit of a state at this point. He's ready to shoot.
Some would say it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Although I do believe I have actually heard stories that the policemen shot each other in different ways to make the story a thing. There's a lot of conspiracy around the Kelly story, which we'll get to at the end as well, about Dan specifically. And then Kennedy, so the sergeant, he runs. So him and Ned have a shoot-off, running between trees, shooting at each other. And then supposedly Kennedy's about 800 yards away or something, or 800 meters away. And he surrenders, and Ned shoots him in the chest. And then Ned goes to him and gets point blank and shoots him in the chest again.
Right.
However, the story comes out later on that Dan was the one that shot Kennedy, not Ned.
Right.
So now we've got Ned and Dan have both killed policemen.
Okay.
And Joe and Steve would have been around, and so it's everyone's part of everything now. So as I said, this is essentially where the entire Kelly gang story goes to shit and where the gang really becomes a gang.
Mm-hmm.
Dan was actually shot during all this as well, so he was a bit wounded. But McIntyre managed to run away because there's all hell's broken loose.
Yeah.
People are shooting people are dying, women are crying, and Dan McIntyre's like, I'm out here.
and the police potentially lying.
Petite potentially paying? Yeah.
Yep, sure. Continue with your story.
I'm having a hard time. I'm doing the facts. It's hard. This is tricky.
It is hard.
I don't like this job. I want to be Leon again. I think I've heard stories as well that McIntyre had to run back to town because the horses were captured, so he had to leg it.
Yeah, right.
So, 30th of October 1878, there was a law passed in Victoria. And whilst I was reading about this upstairs, because I was refreshing my memory, I was saying to Elise that this is one of the times where I'm like, this is just horrible that this is a law that could be passed. So this law was passed that made the Kelly gang outlaws.
Right.
What that meant is that any one of the 4 Kelly gang members could be shot at any time by anyone without any warning.
And the law was specific to those 4.
The law, passed, if you read the old law, it names each of the Kelly gang.
Jeez.
And basically says, shoot them.
That's crazy.
Which is messed up. Now, at this time, now that we've had the murders and everything, remember originally it was £100 for both, I think, the package of Dan and Ned.
Yeah.
Now, dead or alive, £800 each for any one of the 4 boys.
Yeah.
£2,000 for the whole gang.
Wow.
We're starting to rack up the numbers. I'm pretty sure by the time we get to the last reward that I will convert for you and everything, I think it was the largest reward ever offered at that time.
Incredible.
Because it's a huge amount of money.
That's an enormous amount of money already, yeah.
Even £10 for a door was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And now we're here. So after the shooting, obviously they're really doing the bushranging. They're really running away. They're seen throughout the northeast of Victoria. They supposedly tried to go to New South Wales, but the water was too high, so it was hard to get through. On the 10th of December, they robbed the bank at Euroa, which is another iconic event of the Kelly gang, the Euroa robbery, because I think they had to go get the bank manager from his bath or something to come get him to open the safe and everything.
Yeah, right.
So they robbed the bank there. And then another iconic situation, because it's it's the most iconic thing that Ned ever wrote, is when they went to Jerilderie in New South Wales and they robbed a hotel and a bank there. And so Ned wrote the Jerilderie letter, which if you have some time, I highly recommend reading. It's I think it's 30 pages or something that Ned has written in this bar, which is talking about the disadvantages his family's facing against the police and the fact that police need to surrender. And it's strangely poetic. Ned has a way with words.
Yeah.
This is an amazing thing. So everyone should read it. I definitely have. And so they're at Jerilderie, and it's one of the kind of hostage situations. So they've got police locked in a cell. Dan, Kelly, and Steve Hart have all the people in the hotel captured. Now, it's at this time that the final big rewards are offered. £2,000 each, which in today's money, in pounds, is £241,000, £9.12 or something. Australian dollars, $441,432.30.
Wow. Each.
For the entire gang, £8,000, which in pounds today is £964,036.47.
Mm-hmm.
$1,765,729.20 Australian dollars.
Which is great. It just shows how desperate these guys were.
That's nearly £2 million to catch these boys.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. Because in my opinion, the police were just taking this as... it was basically the Kellys were drawing attention to the fact that the police were completely useless.
Yeah.
And that they were attacking them unfairly.
Yeah.
Obviously, after they shoot policemen, it's somewhat fair to be attacked. But what led to that event is where it goes. So they're pointing out the fact they're these guys are shit because they can't catch us.
Yeah.
Because at this time, they were hundreds of gangs of police. Sorry, groups of police, not gangs.
Gangs of
Gaggles of policemen.
These damn gangs of police trolling our
were
cities.
roaming the bushes, trying to... Sorry, the bush, not the bushes. They were roaming shrubberies.
Up in the bushes, yeah.
They were in the bush trying to find the boys, but the police were completely untrained in bush living.
Yeah.
And so they were fucked. Like, they would go in the bush and just be fucked. Whereas the Kelly boys and the gang in general were fine with living in the bush, so they could outrun them and outlive them.
Yeah, that's the life they knew, yeah.
So it was... it's just so much money
Yeah.
for these boys
Kinda
that
wish
you
I could
passed
catch
the
these
law on
boys.
that you want to kill them.
Yeah. Such a fucking specific law as well.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's
It's-
so crazy. You would not be able to do something like that now.
No, I don't think we have any of those laws. Even on terrorists and things, I don't think we're allowed to just kill them.
Yeah.
Because they're people. So in June 1880 is where we get to the big event,
Mm-hmm.
the showstopper,
The big fella.
literally. Glenrowan. You ever been to Glenrowan, Tim?
I've not.
On I think mine and Lisa's trip back to Sydney after we first came down to Melbourne, we stopped in Glenrowan.
Right.
It was pretty cool.
Okay.
So they have different sites. If you're ever in, the Victoria area, it's like 3 hours from Victoria, I think. You stop in Glenrowan and there's nothing much there. It's a very small town. But
Right.
there's like the pub where people were kind of across the road from the shooting. There's the site of the old hotel. The hotel's not there anymore. There's like the train station, the train tracks and all this kind of stuff. It's all there.
Yeah.
And you just kind of walk around and they have like little plaques. They'll have plaques in there. They're like, this is where Ned Kelly fell and stuff. Like, obviously it's probably not as accurate as you want it to be, but
Yeah.
it's very cool to go around to. And I learned some facts there that I didn't know as well.
Okay. Nice.
So, Glenrowan, the summary of it is they wanted to take hostages to try and get the police to let Ellen and the neighbours that they'd arrested go free.
Right.
So the Kelly gang were going to go to Glenrowan. They went to this hotel that was there.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to take everyone hostage. They did this. It's amazing in how, it's horrible, but it's amazing that they thought to do this. There was a train track crew there. They went and woke up the train track crew at night and told them to pull up the train tracks in a certain spot because police back in those days traveled by train and they wanted the train to come off the tracks.
Right. Okay.
Which is horrible. They would have killed people, but what an amazing plan.
Yeah.
They would just take the train tracks. So they were going to do all that, and then they were going to, have a standoff with the police and make them let go before they would let people go. That was the plan.
Right.
During this time, though, obviously things went wrong, but the Aaron Sherritt, the guy from earlier that I mentioned that visited the boys in the bush.
Yeah.
It's a callback. He was informing police.
Right.
So he'd been doing that. And at this time, there was
Fucking share it.
Yeah, fucking share it. There were 4 policemen living at his house, something like that. So Dan and Joe go to Sherritt's house.
Mm-hmm.
They kidnap his neighbor, Weeks, I love it when Wikipedia articles specify nationality. It's his German neighbor. I'm does it matter?
Yeah.
Did he say something
No,
in
he
German?
was German, and it's incredibly important to the story.
His German neighbor, Weeks, or probably Weeks, they kidnapped him to try and lure Sherritt out of the house. And as soon as Sherritt opened the door, Joe Byrne shot him.
Well done, Joe.
Now, this time, the policemen were hiding under the bed. I think there might have only been 2 at the house at that time. They were hiding under the bed. But so here's the plan, is that they shoot Sherritt. The police say the Kellys have murdered someone else. They get a police train to come to Glenrowan, and the plan kicks off.
Right, okay. So killing Cheryl was
Part of the plan.
a purposeful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the police don't come out from under the bed until the next day.
Right.
Because they're scared, I guess. So the plan goes to shit from that point.
Just laying in their wee-wee.
Yeah, just laying in their own wee-wee. So, yeah, this is where it starts to go down. Now I can't read what I've written. I've already said that part about that. So Ned and Dan, because that plan didn't go to plan, Ned and Dan's plan didn't go to plan. They, the people in the hotel are getting restless. There were lots of people at this hotel. If you read Robert Drew's story, Our Sunshine, which we talked to him about, they talk about having circus performers there.
Yeah.
Which,
there was something going on.
yeah, so there was lion tamers and that. But I think the reality of it is, so Dan and Ned, infamous for entertaining people when they've got them hostage. At Jerilderie, They were pouring drinks and having a laugh and writing a letter. At Glenrowan, because the people were getting restless, Ned started organising music to be played and Dan started dancing just to entertain people. Because, as you can tell from the way that I talk about them, or we talk about them, is that they were affectionately known and loved, these boys.
They're larrikins.
They're
Aussie
larrikins, as we say. But they were heroes. They were essentially the Robin Hoods of Australia, which is most of our bushrangers. Aside from crazy people that eat people.
That was a bit messed up.
That's it. We don't talk about him much.
No.
So they started, playing music and doing all that. Now, Dan wanted to leave. So here's the thing. Dan, the youngest of the gang, wants to leave. He's like, the plan's gone to shit. We should go.
Rightio.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Definitely a good idea when it gets to it, but probably should have listened to Dan. But I guess they all say no. Now, there's also this story about a guy called Thomas Cornell. Mm-hmm. I think is how you say it. And he was a teacher at the time, and he's like, I want to go home. I need to go home to my wife and give her a message or something like that. And Dan's like, Ned, don't trust this guy. He's going to fuck us up.
Yeah, right.
And he did. Because the thing that Cornell did is he went home to his wife, grabbed her red scarf, ran to the train tracks, and hailed the police train so it stopped before it got to the bit where there were no tracks. So he saved this entire thing of police. Which meant that the Kellys' plan to go and capture any police that survived the crash was thwarted, and a whole train full of policemen rocked up at Glenrowan and surrounded the entire fucking hotel.
Uh-oh, spaghetti-o.
And that's when the shootout goes down. So they all got in their suits of armour. Everyone's seen the iconic Ned Kelly suit of armour. It's actually a bit of the story that I hate because everyone thinks that they wore them the whole time, but they only wore them during the Glenrowan siege.
Yep.
That's it. They were super heavy, super bad to run around in, and there were a bunch of spots where you could actually get shot, but it protected like your chest and your head and things like that.
Yeah.
So they put on their suits and they get ready for a face-off. In the first couple of shots, Ned and Joe are wounded already.
Yeah.
Also, one of the sergeants and one of the hotel patrons whose name I didn't actually write down, he was killed. So, like, first couple of shots, it's all over. Ned leaves the hotel to keep shooting at the police. Like, he goes out into the thick of it and starts going for it. I think he was dual wielding. I think 2 guns.
Wow.
There's some. I think it's in the Heath Ledger Ned Kelly movie. They have because he gets shot in the arm, and so he kind of has to prop the gun up on his side. It's a great movie if anyone watches it. And as we know, call back again to Robert Drew. That's based on his book Our Sunshine, and we've touched his hand.
Yeah.
Kissed it as well.
Yeah. Made out with him a bit.
He kissed my hand first.
Yeah.
So it's estimated that during the shootout that 15,000 bullets were shot.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you even get 15,000 bullets? And also remember, this is 1880 gun, so it's not the fastest way to shoot someone.
Yeah, jeez.
They probably have revolvers then, I assume, but
I would imagine so.
That's 6 shots so you get, and you got to refill it. So
wow, so many.
Super inaccurate too. Byrne got shot in the groin.
Owie.
And died. What a way to go.
Yeah.
So
shot.
Yeah, Joe Byrne gets shot in the groin. Ned goes looking for Dan and Steve because he can't find them, which is kind of a really nice moment that I think about, and it kind of makes me a little bit sad that he, even in this crazy siege, is like, I need to find my brother and my friend.
Yeah.
And at this time, this is where, part of the armor is shown its weakness because Ned gets shot in the legs.
Yeah.
So he gets shot in the legs, which means he goes down, and the police capture him pretty easily.
Yeah.
I can't remember if the original design had leg plates. And if they got rid of them because it was too hard to walk in them. But yeah, so he just got shot in the legs and that's where he got captured. Now, Ned doesn't get killed here. You'll find out in his story, but Ned gets hanged later on. So can't find Dan and Steve. They find out Dan and Steve are in the house. At this point, Maggie, the sister, and a priest called Father Gibney want to go into the house and say, you guys need to surrender. We need to stop this shit.
Yeah.
The police don't let them and instead order a cannon to come down from Melbourne so they can shoot it at the house. Now, the interesting thing that I found out is that the hotel, the pub that's kind of nearby where the hotel site was, there's a plaque there that says that I think Kate and Maggie and other family members were at this pub whilst the siege was going down. They were nearby.
Yeah, right.
Which I can't imagine that situation. They're at this pub watching this siege, being like, my brothers are over there having a shootout. So that's mental. And I think also, stray bullets are going everywhere, just all over the shop. So they asked to go inside. Police say no, and the police set fire to the hotel to try and get the boys to come out.
Yep.
Father Gibney actually goes inside. He's like, fuck you guys, I'm going in. So he runs in there and he finds Dan, Steve, I think Joe are all in the same place. But he finds Dan and Steve are dead. So they're lying there. They've got their heads on a towel, supposedly, or on a blanket, and they're lying next to each other. So this leads to a couple of different stories.
Right.
The main one being that they shot each other because it was all too much, or shot themselves.
Right.
Because of how they were laid, supposedly. But there's a lot of stories. They could have been dragged there by someone else. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah.
So they're found there side by side, dead. Maggie and like all her friends and stuff, and Kate, so the family and that, they initially take Dan's body back to Greta, but they're afraid that the police are going to try and get the body. Because what happens after they get killed, and there's pictures of it, which is fucked, is that they like put sheets of bark down, laid the bodies on it, and took pictures of the dead bodies, which is just gross. And you can find these pictures, and it's just like, what the fuck was going through your head at this time that you were like, got to take a picture of this dead person? So they try to take the body, and then they decide Greta's not safe, so they take it to Benalla instead. So Dan and I think Joe, maybe Steve as well, I'm not sure, but Dan definitely, is buried in an unmarked grave on the 30th of June, 1880.
Right.
The grave's filled in, and then they plough the entire area because they're afraid that the police will come and steal the body.
Right.
This means that no one knows where the grave of Dan and like Steve or Joe, whichever one it was as well, is.
Right.
Which leads to the conspiracies.
Did he die?
So people believe that they didn't die. They believe that Dan and one of the other boys, as I said, I'll find out when we look at them in our episode, ran off to South Africa and fought in the wars over there.
Interesting.
A man got up at like an exhibition or something one time because he claimed to be Dan Kelly and told all these stories about the Kelly gang where people believed it was him.
Interesting.
Another man claimed to be Dan Kelly at another point in time. All these people claimed to be Dan Kelly because there was no proof of where his body was. And police at different times have even taken DNA samples from certain graves and that to work out whether a person could have been Dan Kelly or not.
Wow.
So there's all these conspiracies around it, which I think there were conspiracies about that around Ned as well a couple of years ago with the skull and everything. It was like, was it actually Ned Kelly's skull and all this stuff?
Yeah.
So there's conspiracies around it, which is super interesting. And so, as I said, the end of it all, so it's the 28th of June is when they die, 1880. And so Dan was 19 years old, which is crazy. And his armour, you can still see it at the Victorian Police Museum.
Wow.
So all their armour kind of got put all over the place, and then it all came back to Melbourne. But it's like, it's in really weird places. Like I think Ned's is in like a museum. Dan and one of the other boys is with the Victorian Police. But one of the things of armour is owned by a family because it was given to like Sir someone's family. I think Clark is their last name. And they still own the armour.
They just have it.
Which is just so bizarre.
That's very bizarre.
But that's
Dan.
A very short, and I'm telling you, that's the shortest I could get it.
Yeah.
Summary of the Kelly Gang adventures and Dan Kelly himself.
Interesting.
A lot of facts. Important though, because it's odd how embedded the Kelly Gang are in Australian culture.
Very much so.
If you look at cultures around the world, not many of them herald criminals and outlaws for being the heroes of the nation.
Yeah. But when you read the Kelly story, you can see why.
Yeah.
So many people supported them back in the day.
Back in the day. So, from a 5-year-old boy who was accused of stealing a horse to a 19-year-old young man
who literally put on armor and went out and fought the police.
Yeah, which is such a strange thing. The whole thing behind Ned and the boys deciding to make the armor is just such an odd idea.
It is a weird idea.
Like basing it on knights and stuff like that and being like, yeah, this could work.
Yeah.
Because it's odd. It also did work though.
Sort of.
It's just that it weighed a fucking ton.
Yeah.
And they had the big coats on and everything.
Bloody oath.
It's pretty interesting.
It is very interesting.
They thought he was invincible when they were shooting at Ned and couldn't kill him.
And old Danny boy, beard-wise, what are you talking?
Oh, actually, I haven't had a look. Have you got a picture of him there?
I only have the illustrated picture in which he has zero beard.
Yeah, I was going to say I think he was quite beardless.
Yeah, I don't think he was a bearded boy.
I think Ned had all the beard for the family.
Yeah. So in terms of our beardometer,
on a scale of 1 to beard, he would be a Dan Kelly.
Yeah.
At the bottom.
Right at the very bottom. He'd probably be... I mean, he's got a little bit of a stash.
Little stash.
But he's got like a 19-year-old stash, so it's probably wispy and gross.
So that's like a 0.5 on the scale.
Yeah.
So not at the bottom, but a 0.5.
Definitely.
Well, there you go. He probably had more of a beard in the end. We'll find that disgusting death picture and judge his beard off that.
And plaster it all over Facebook for people
Send it to all our friends.
look at. Yeah.
There you go. What's that sound?
I don't know.
It's the Harold Holt Watch. That was kind of smoother than last time.
Nailed it.
I wouldn't say it's the smoothest.
I just stay quiet.
Yeah, you say less.
It was just easier for me to stay quiet.
Tim, have you got something for us this week?
Have I ever? Oh, gee whiz. Hang on. No, I do. Yeah, I was just checking. Got an email.
An electronic mail.
Yes, sir. Let me read this to you. Dear Tim and Leon, I'm writing this email to you quickly and from a burner email, as I'm afraid they might come for me if they know I have sent this to you. Ooh.
This took a turn for the worse.
What's going on? I've heard about mass sightings of UFOs before and all manner of creatures, but this mass sighting has got me in true awe. I was at the Royal Sydney Easter Show last weekend, and I was watching the end of night show when we got to the finale fireworks. Big fireworks. We've seen them.
Great show.
Yeah.
Was it Man from Snowy River or Bluey the Cattle Dog this year?
I don't know. It doesn't mention. Or they don't mention. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I tried to look it up on the website. It doesn't say.
Damn.
Very confusing website on a side story.
Easter Show website.
The Easter Show fixture website. It's very confusing. Anyway, they were going off to inspirational music, like always, when suddenly there was an enormous flash of light in the center of the stadium, and a bright, shining man standing in the center was looking around at the crowd. At first, I thought it was the Lord Jesus Christ returned, but when I looked closer, I realized the man was much older. It only took a few seconds to realize who I'd seen. It was Holt, come to bless us all with his presence. I remember he looked around the crowd, waved, and then disappeared. On the way out, everyone was told by these big men in black suits that we couldn't talk about what we'd seen, or they would lock us up. I'm scared they'll come for me, but I had to let you know. Get the word out there, boys. The Lord Harold Holt has risen again. Regards, Anonymous.
Whoa.
First of all, thanks for dragging us into it, because now we could be arrested, so I appreciate that.
This is bullshit.
Yeah. No, it's good you got this to the media. We're going to blow this story wide open.
Us being the media.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I know what I'd prefer on Easter long weekend would be the rising of Harold.
Oh, 100%.
Like, he first thought it was Jesus Christ, and then he realized, or he or she realized that it was far more important. It was Harold himself.
Yeah. So, if anyone else saw that, if anyone was there on that particular night, that I guess they were there at Easter as well, which is interesting.
I feel like since our show started, Harold's been letting his guard down. It's almost like he wants to be found.
It's like he's flirting with us, like a little sighting here.
Like, the Easter show is the biggest event in the history of Australia.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
Like, next year he's probably going to be the man from Snowy River. Or he's going to play Bluey the Cattle Dog.
He might win the wood cutting. We don't know.
He's probably been doing it for years.
He probably has.
Cooking me turkey legs and corn on the cob. Now I want to go to the Easter show.
Yeah, no, those turkey legs are good.
They didn't do it. They don't do something like that in Victoria, do they?
I think there is an Easter show, but it's not as big as the Sydney one.
Bastards. There you go, Anonymous.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anonymous.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Don't go shooting off your mouth too much. Hope you're still alive.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I hope we're still alive.
That'd be
in a
even
week.
better.
Yeah.
Not that I don't value their life more than my own, but
yeah,
I don't. Tim, that's great. So, as it's a Bushranger episode, we have to say that we don't have to say, we choose to say that we're sponsored by Bushrangers Brew. Our good mate Joel, who should be sending me another bottle of beard wash soon because I've gone through mine.
Fabulous.
Mystics for me. What do you use, Tim?
Bunyip's Dreaming in the wash, which I used last night, and Rum Rebellion in the balm, which I also used last night. I gave it a good balming.
A bit of a double.
Gave it a big balm. I did. Yeah,
got a big balm on. I'm Mystics across the board because I'm not a nut job patchwork man like Tim.
Rum Rebellion is where it's at. I think that's where I'm gonna sit from now on.
Rum Rebellion's good, but Bunyip's Dreaming is also good. Those are the ones I started on before I matured in my palate.
Yeah, sure.
But you can get 25% off your order by not burping into the microphone like I just did.
That's 1/4.
Yeah, by 1/4 off your order, which using conversion rates from 1879 to now is the equivalent of about $1 million.
Yeah, approximately a quarter.
Yeah, off
think.
your order.
Yeah.
By using the code YEAGDAY, all caps, no spaces, no punctuation mark, YEAHGDAY. Because we have to. See what I did there? Why? Because we have to.
Why? Because we want to.
And we like it. So that's our good friend Joel. As always, I'd like to thank Teylor Smirl, Teylor Smirl, Smelly T, Taylor Moon for our wonderful cover art.
And of course, Curtis Fernance, Fern Tree Music, Sailor Venus, unrelated to the tree thing, but
it's just who he associates with.
Yeah, that's who he is at a soul level. No, thanks for the music. Thanks for the Harold Holt watch music and all of the music.
Tune.
Yeah.
Thanks as always to the Auscast Network for having us on there, and Omny Studio for hosting us. I'm loving it.
I'm loving it. Such control.
All the control.
So much control.
You can also support us at www.patreon.com/YeagerDay, where for $1 you can get a special gift, and more you can get even more.
Yeah.
Last weekend, Tim and I recorded another bonus episode. We talked about
Fish and chips.
I'd forgotten. And we watched the critically acclaimed Oscar-winning film Pixels.
Oh, what a movie.
And recorded audio commentary.
What a travesty of a movie.
It should be watched by none. Some. Sorry. I keep mixing up those words. So yeah, you can get that at our Patreon. Even more exciting, Tim. We've done so much in the last couple of weeks. Even more exciting.
Yeah, that's true.
Is you can find Jaeger Day. Getting close, Tim. Come here. No, don't touch my dick.
Hey, watch out.
No, you can touch it.
They don't know that we're not...
You don't know how we sit in here.
We're sitting...
We're lying across
about
each
2
other's
meters
laps.
away.
And I got a huge dick.
Rightio.
You can find huge dick-related jokes on YouTube now. You can get Jaeger Day on YouTube. The first 10 episodes are there.
Yeah.
And the next 10 will come when I can be bothered to upload them, which will be soon enough.
So if you want to watch us... watch our voice,
our video waves
sound.
Yeah,
that's where you could do it.
Yeah, and because old people, we love them, but they're not so savvy with the pod world. Send them to YouTube.
It's true, but YouTube, they get it.
Yeah, everyone gets YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can find us on YouTube. So have a look there. There's a couple of videos, and then you can also watch our Jaeger Day foods and stuff like that. But speaking of Jaeger Day food and our videos, Tim, I want to give a really special shout out this week to a very good friend of ours and friend of the podcasts, Kim. Kinda Dorky Fun Times, Taylor. Kim the Toolman Taylor.
Kim the cool. Yep, that's
Kim the Cool Man Taylor. Cool lady. Because she started a podcast, which we were lucky enough to listen to before it went to the rest of the world. Because we're pretty up there in the podcast game.
Just how we roll.
Yeah, it's how we roll. But her podcast is called Indie Development.
Hey,
see what she did
it's
there?
a pun.
So it's INDIEVELOPMENT. So Indie Development, where she talks with indie game developers and artists and things like that about that world and about their own experiences. The first episode is really interesting because the guest that she has on, whose name I forget right now, talks about their experience and how gaming has helped them with mental illness and things like that, which is super interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So check out Indie Development and check out Kinda Dorky Fun Times on all the social media and that, because we love Kim.
Yeah, she goes all right. She lent me a book. It's a big deal. If you know Kim, it's a big deal, and I appreciate it. I'm reading it. I'm 50 pages in.
Tim's wearing cotton gloves every time that he does it.
I do.
So this has been a long one because there's a lot to cover, and I think the next couple of Bushranger episodes will be long ones because there's a lot to cover in the Kelly world, and we'll try and uncover new bits and pieces. I've got a week off work, so I'm just going to read every Ned Kelly book ever.
Yeah, in a week. Fuck.
Yeah, it's not hard. I'm pretty fast reader. I can read 10 pages in 2 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the slowest readers I've ever met. But good for you, bro.
I really am.
For you.
I think it's about 10 pages an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm an English teacher again.
Fun.
So yeah, that's good. I think that's it. You got anything?
No. I got nothing going on.
No, that's good. Yeah, you cooked some butter chicken before.
I did, yeah. I ate some. I'll probably go up and eat a bit more, to be honest.
Sorry, this was a really tenuous 48 minutes for you, and you just had some butter chicken.
Yeah.
Could happen at any moment. All right. as always. Yeah, g'day, Tim.
Yeah, g'day, Leon.
Yeah, g'day, everyone.
Yeah, g'day, everyone. Catch you on the flippity flop.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.